Okay, so essentially this Module 2 assignment, the goal is to encourage you to really review the standards and to have a deeper understanding of the standards. So I'm gonna start with choosing a grade level, right? So if you choose preschool, 3 to 5 years old, you're going to choose the Illinois Early Learning Standards. So I'm going to start step 1, review the following. So make sure you read these articles and then review the standards that you want to do. So if you choose Illinois Early Learning Standards, you're going to do preschool 3 to 5, K to second, ages 5 to 8, or third to fifth, you're going to do Common Core. So let's say I choose K to second. So I'm going to highlight K. So I'm going to this is what I'm going to choose. And then let's say I'm choosing literacy. You choose either literacy or math. So I'm going to choose literacy. And then you have to put the strand. Now, all of that is in the PowerPoint presentation. So I click here, reading the elementary standards. There's a presentation in the assignment here for ECE. It'll download. And there's a presentation for ECE in the assignment. So I click the elementary standards. I go and I see here literacy, and here are all of the strands or the domains. So there's literature, informational text, writing, foundational skills, speaking, and listening. So then I type here strand, literature, writing, speaking, and listening, etc. If I am choosing math, then I would not do this, right? So if I am choosing math, I would do, so now I'm going to choose math. I'm not going to choose literacy. And I would choose here, go down to math. And these are the domains. So counting and cardinality, which is kindergarten only, operations and algebraic thinking, numbers and operations in base 10. So here it shows you here, this is grade 3, for example. So operations and algebraic thinking, numbers and operations in base 10, number and operations and fractions. So if I'm doing math, then I would write that here in where it says strands. So it would be operations and algebraic thinking, I would put numbers and operations in base 10, and so on. Then for each one, I either choose the substandards or the domain. So here for math, for example, I have represent for operations on algebraic thinking. For grade 3, this is, represent and solve problems involving multiplication and division, understanding properties. So that's what I would put here if I'm choosing grade 3. So you have to think about the grade that you're choosing, right? So if you're choosing kindergarten, you are going to, this is also the counting and cardinality is in there. So this is just an example from grade 3. You need to use your specific standards. So let's say I'm doing grade 2. I'm going to go into second grade. Let me find second grade math. And here in operations and algebraic thinking, I have represent and solve addition and subtraction. So I'm going to put that here. Under numbers in base 10, I have understanding place value. So I'm going to put that here. And so on. Then you're going to choose one, right? Either a substrand from literacy or a cluster from math. So I'm going to choose this, right? Operations and algebraic thinking, and represents and solves addition and subtraction. So I'm just going to choose this here. And I need to summarize the progression or the cluster through the age grade band, right? So I'm going to look at the standard through second grade, and I'm going to summarize, okay, these are all the things that are involved with operations and algebraic thinking, right? What does all of this mean in second grade? Then, so I'm going to put that in there. Then I'm going to explain in my own words, what is this, what is all of this asking me to do? So each one of these is a part of the cluster. So I need to put, all of this is a part of the cluster. So add and subtract, and then works with multiple. So all of this is a part of multiplication. So I need to put all of this in the cluster, and I need to explain, how does it, the progression through the age band, through the grade band, sorry. Then I'm going to say, how will understanding the progression inform your teaching? So understanding how all of this kind of progresses and works together, how does this help me understand my teaching, right? So I have first, they need to be able to represent and solve problems involving addition and subtraction. Then they can add and subtract. Then they work with equal groups of objects to gain foundation and multiplication. So how does all of this work together? And then why is it important for me to understand that, and how will my understanding of that support me in teaching? And then I need to talk about understanding by design and how it will help align with state standards, and then challenges that might face, and then my own personal reflection. So that is essentially how you do this. You need to think of a specific grade that you're going to work with, use the presentation, use the Common Core standards to help you. So again, if you're doing math, then that's what you would do. If you're doing literacy, then instead I would choose the strands: literature, informational text, foundational skill writing, speaking and listening, and then the sub-strands that are here. And then from there, I would go to my literacy Common Core standards and pick the grade. So let's say I'm doing second grade. I pick the grade, I find second grade, here it is. Let's say I'm doing writing, text, types, and purposes. That's what I want to do. And I'm going to then talk about this here, and talk about how it works together, how this writing for text types and purposes works together. What are the implications for my planning, and talk about the design as well.